Hello, bonjour, Tanshi. My name is Crystal Lavallee. I am the founder and national director of I Am Compelled. We are an educational charity engaging students in Canadian history and inspiring you to be a change maker. We are delighted to bring you the stories of Africville, which were filmed on the traditional Mi'kma'ki territory in Nova Scotia. And we wanted to let you know that today's presentation, your partnership actually empowers us to support the Africville Museum in their scholarship program. We want to give a shout out to the former residents of Africville for sharing their stories with us, as well as the town of Newmarket for giving us the space at the old town hall. We hope you enjoy today's virtual experience. Miigwech.
Africville was the victim of racist attitudes on the part of the city of Halifax.
I've been here my whole life fighting for Africville, fighting for black people, fighting for Canadians.
What can you do when they come in and you have to move, you have to make a new life, you just have to start all over again.
Hello, hola, bonjour, and welcome to I Am Compelled's virtual experience, Journey to Africville. I'm Julia, and we are so excited to be with you today.
What's up? My name is Vishan, and I'm so glad that you are a part of today's program. Students from across the nation are tuning in to learn about Africville, a thriving community located on the Bedford Basin in Nova Scotia. This isn't just Black history, this is Canadian history.
Hi, I'm Vanessa, and I can't wait to walk you through this phenomenal program. You see, I was born and raised here in Canada. However, I had no idea of what Africville was until this program. Let's start the beginning and learn about the early migration to Nova Scotia. Where did the people from Africville come from?
Let's find out.
As long as there have been European people in Acadie or in Nova Scotia, there have also been people of African descent or origin. It started with Samuel de Champlain with Matthew da Costa. The New England planters came, and with them, they brought their servants. The French who were here in Fortress Louisbourg, they had slaves. There were about 500 plus slaves in Fortress Louisbourg, which was Ile Royale, which is known today as Cape Breton. Then there were the Loyalists. A lot of people know the Loyalists because of the Book of Negroes. And they came up when the Americans gained their independence from the British. A lot of people were promised their freedom. They were promised provisions and land if they, again, supported the British. And in between that, there was migration of Maroons, Trelawney Maroons, who came up from Jamaica. They only stayed 4 years. They were given the same promises. The promises didn't materialize, and then they said that's enough, and they went to Sierra Leone in Africa. The Black refugees, the people who came up following the War of 1812, that's where the people of Africville came from. My family's one of the early families in Africville. That's the Carvery family. Aaron Paul Carvery, who I think everybody who's heard about Africville knows, was the last man standing in Africville. They thought they could bury us, but they forgot we were seeds.
They thought they could bury us, but they forgot we were seeds. What a powerful statement from Carm Robertson. So many Black people were forced to leave their homelands, and they were promised a better life in exchange for their labor. But they were tricked.
The people of Africville were skilled workers, entrepreneurs, lawyers, and advocates from all over the world. And even though slavery was abolished in 1883 in the British Empire, the mindset of those in power continued to enslave their neighbors simply because they were Black.
That's because while physical slavery can be abolished by changing the law, racism can only be abolished by changing the heart. The people of Africville, though legally free, were still mistreated by those in power.
So this is why racism can still exist even today. But we'll talk more about what we can do about racism later. For now, let's learn more about the history of Africville.
My name is Irvin Carvery. I was born and raised in the community of Africville. My memory of Africville was a community of roughly around 400 people, 80 families. It was spread out on the shores of Bedford Basin. went up over the hill of the north end of Halifax, stretched from pretty close down to Pier 9, all the way around to what we called the Fairview Overpass. The history is still unclear. People of African Nova Scotian descent never wrote their own history. We have to look into other people's histories and writings. And in 1749, when Edward Cornwallis came into the harbor to establish the town of Halifax, on board his ships, there were slaves. And the British, being very proper, called them servants. Those slaves were used to build the fortifications and the first houses. And once the settlers were settled, now came the job of feeding the settlers. And it's our belief that those slaves went down over the hill and built their homes on the shores of Bedford Basin. Every type of fish that you would find in the North Atlantic, you would find in the Bedford Basin. Lobsters, crabs, clams, mussels provided a source of food for those slaves. We uncovered a lithograph that was done from an artist who was on the opposite side of Bedford Basin looking back towards Africville. And clearly in the lithograph, there's a community there. That was 1835. The only Black community ever on the shores of Bedford Basin was Africville.
Africville was a thriving independent community with a population of 400 people from 80 families.
They were brought to Nova Scotia as servants, slaves, to build the first fortifications and houses for the first settlers.
I couldn't imagine being taken from my homeland, forced to build other people's homes, then being pushed away to fend for myself. The people of Africville are resilient.
The origins of Black Canadian communities are from Nova Scotia. Africville is one of 52 Black settlements in the province.
It's so important for all of us who share this land to know the history of what happened here. That's why I'm so grateful for this program.
So true. I mean, I was born in Romania and my family moved to Canada in 2003. But I love Canada and I'm so thankful to be here. That's why it's so important to know the injustices so I can do my part in righting the wrongs.
I was born in Canada, but my family migrated from Jamaica in the 1970s. Every member of my family have faced racism in some form. To get a better understanding of the landscape in Africville, here is Irvin Carvery.
Historians will tell you, oh, well, you know, Africville began in 1848. No, that's not true. What happened in 1848 was the first land purchase. Think about the times that we're talking about, you know, 1700s, early 1800s. Nobody was giving Black people mortgages. Nobody was giving Black people loans. Employment was scarce and very hard to find. It's reasonable to think that it would have taken all that time in order for them to gather enough money to be able to purchase land. If you look at the land purchases, it was never just one family, it was either 2 or 3 families that came together and pooled their money to buy land. Right across the harbor from Africville was Tufts Cove, the Mi'kmaq community that was destroyed in the Halifax explosion. We would go back and forth across the harbor visiting each of the communities, and of course there was intermarriage.
Hi, my name is Imani Aurora and I'm 18 years old. My name is Mahari and I'm 16 years old.
Hi, my name is Jade and I'm 15.
Have you ever experienced racism?
Yes, I have faced racism. It has affected me mentally and physically. I faced it more in my school, but as I've gotten older, I feel like I've had more Black peers, so I don't like have it as much.
I have dealt with microaggressions and racism, comments on my hair, little jabs that to them mean nothing, but to me, they really did affect me a lot.
You can't really talk about how you feel like if something happened to other people because you're like, maybe they'll judge you because they don't really understand how I'm feeling or what I've been through.
The little comments and jokes, like maybe how dark someone's skin is or how light it is.
I feel like skin color shouldn't be something that people look at. Like, if you don't know me, don't judge me. It is something you can overcome with the help of family and friends.
I love how the Mi'kmaq people were there to support Black refugees.
Right? There have always been such a strong connection of mutual respect and trust between Indigenous and Black communities.
If you want to know what it was like growing up as children, here's Beatrice and Bernice's story.
We'll talk about the Black communities in
Yes.
Nova Scotia first.
Okay, yeah.
Where it all started.
Welcome to Africville. I'm glad that you could come.
Beatrice Wilkins. I was born and raised in Africville, a community in Nova Scotia, Canada.
I was born in Africville, and I'm from around the turn part of Africville.
Community was vibrant.
You went to school, you had chores, you played, you went to church.
We could go to anybody's house and visit, talk, chat.
You were bad. By the time you got to your house,
Yes.
you were chastised by the whole neighborhood, and your mother was waiting there with a switch.
Yes, it
Let
was
us
a
know.
visual aid.
Visual aid. Every Sunday, every house that you went by, you could smell corned beef and cabbage. If you came out to visit me and you didn't have anything to eat, my father would say, come on, sit down. Let me give you a plate of food. And even if somebody was mad with someone, they still sit them down at the table.
We didn't have dishwashers, so we lugged our water from the well. These little green snakes go across your path as you're coming down, and there's more water being wasted. I don't know what it is, but it scared me to death.
A bounty of fish, lobster, crab, mussels, periwinkles. That was all from Bedford Basin, and everything was free. We didn't pay for a thing out here.
So you share it in the community, especially with the seniors. Africville was not on welfare.
You know, people worked. They didn't just stay home and do nothing. You know, they had to provide for the families.
They had gardens, farms, chickens, geese. I had to walk past them going to school. These things would come out and attack you, right?
We had a post office. We had 3 stores. We had sustained ourselves. We were free.
And given our background, slaves through Africa and America, those people in Africa owned property. They were kings and queens. They knew how to organize and run a community. So they brought that here with them.
My family is known as the Black Islanders. Came over from Boston and went to PEI, left PEI, went down to Cape Breton, and then moved out here to Africville.
The church was the vocal point of the community. My family grew up singing in the church in Africville.
Maybe the last time, I don't know.
Even to this day, people, my nieces and great nieces are singing those same hymns that we grew up singing.
Everybody had nice property inside and out. We had plenty of food, and we looked after our family.
You got to remember that slaves were bought and sold here in Halifax.
We're all here in this human race for the same reasons.
To come together as one, as a unit, you know, stop fighting each other.
I love dancing because it gave me an outlet to express myself. It's something that releases my stress. So if I'm having a bad day, dancing just throws that all away with all the moves and the textures.
It's also a way to connect with other people.
When we first stepped foot in Dole a bunch of years ago, the intention was to learn from a community that I grew up being taught to fear. The choreography itself is a contemporary expression of many dance forms that come from the African diaspora. The skirts themselves are representative of Caribbean folklore. The skirts itself depict or show how we had survived out of the slave experience. It was a way to be able to call people together. Illustrates the fact that women in our society, in our culture, that they are always at the forefront of revolt. When we are moving our skirts, there's many layers of clearing evil out of the way, clearing away its subtle messaging. There's so many things that are happening on top of the joy, the celebration. But that in itself, the joy, the celebration, is a weapon. Allyship is just a word, but to me it's all about action. If I'm not living with community and if I'm not immersed in community, then I'm making assumptions about what the community needs. And sometimes it's actually quite uncomfortable because you're used to your own kind of space, right? But in that discomfort and leaning into that and pushing into that is where we begin changing and shifting.
How can non-Black people celebrate Black history and culture?
I feel like educating themselves is a really important one, especially when it comes to the way we style our hair and just where things come from.
Take the time to actually learn about our history and learn our struggle. A lot of times in school they talk about slavery, a lot of slavery this, slavery that, but there's more. The great people that we have. I definitely believe that Canadians have been given an opportunity to be educated about African culture, and I feel like it should be in every school.
Good day, my name is DePars Cottrell. I recently had the honor of traveling to Nova Scotia, to the land site of Africville, and to the Africville site of the museum. I got to experience and talk to former residents of the community, and it deepened my understanding of Canadian history for the Black community. It made me realize a lot of those parts that are hidden. See, Canadian history is not just about World War I and World War II, and a list of our prime ministers and their accomplishments and achievements of what they transpired to do in this country. It also has bumps and bruises that have made Canada what it is on its way to where we are today. And how can we tell that story more vividly without understanding and studying the raw history of Canada? We understand that this information may be hard to listen to or understand or to watch, and by no means are we against any race of people. We simply want to share the stories of this history to right the wrongs. Without further ado, we have a list of key terms we want to deliver to you today. Anti-Black racism is any practice or belief that stereotype and discriminate against people based on race. You have to remember that our former institutional practices were ingrained with racism. A couple of years ago, I was working at a bank and went out for lunch. Typical day, typical routine. But I went to a different local restaurant and I was refused service because I was Black. I've never gone back again. To be the change you want to be in this world, you have to stand up. Second term, racial inequalities, refers to the discrimination based on race in opportunities for social, economical advancement, or access to goods and services. I played professional chess in high school. I was the only Black kid playing in these tournaments. I was competing just like every other person, but could not afford lessons and training unlike my other counterparts. And many people did not take me seriously when I came to the table just because I was Black. Some of them even did mannerisms that were disrespectful, things like folding their hands and sitting way back. Let's treat others the way we want to be treated. Environmental racism is intentionally destroying the environment with hazardous materials nearby that bring harm to a group of people. This is exactly what happened to Africville residents with the infectious disease hospital, landfill, and arbitrarily. Do not be afraid or look away when you see these acts happening. We all need to stand up against this form of racism to ensure a better planet for everyone that lives here. Thank you for learning with me. A quote I always say is, "You don't know who you are until you understand where you come from." So, what happened to Africville? Take a look at this.
Winter was difficult in Africville. We lived in wooden framed houses that were not insulated, and they were all heated by wooden stoves. Africville had no sewer, had no running water. You have to go to the well, break the ice, get the water out, and carry it home. It was an idyllic life, but it was also had its share of hardships. What happened to Africville? Africville was the victim of racist attitudes on the part of the city of Halifax. In around 1915, in the minutes of the city of Halifax, it was reported that we are going to attract new industries to Halifax, and we will encourage them to locate in the industrial mile. Well, the industrial mile was Africville. Around 1876, they built what was called the Infectious Disease Hospital, and it was directly above Africville. In the 1850s, the railroad came through. It went straight through the heart of Africville. They put in abattoirs, bone crushing mill into Africville. They had a fertilizer plant in Africville. In 1955, the city decided that the city dump had to be moved. They looked at various locations, all rejected because of health concerns. They ended up putting it 300 yards from the nearest home in Africville. And this was not a landfill. This was a dump. It made the community feel like they weren't worth anything. It made the community feel helpless. It made the community feel what they've always feeling when it came in regards to city officials, when it came in regards to white people. It made them feel disenfranchised. It made them feel that they had no say. It made them feel that whatever they say, that's it. We can't do anything about it. Our best thing to do was to figure out how we could best live with it. It gives you a little insight into the relationship between those in positions of authority and power to the Black people of Africa. You were less than. My grandparents were landowners. My grandparents had a slave mentality, and the people in positions of power had a slave owner mentality because we were not that far removed from slavery.
Two counselors, you'll see in pictures, came out here, convinced our foremothers and fathers, because we were kids, that the land was unsafe. There was about 22 or 23 families that had deeds to their land. When they sold their homes, as soon as it was down, it was bulldozed.
As a young person, I didn't have a concept of the big picture. I just seen my friends leaving. It made me sad. I was wondering, where were they going? Why'd they have to leave?
When they sold their homes, as soon as it was down, it was bulldozed.
I can remember watching the houses get torn down, wondering what's going on, why is this happening?
People in Africville have not recovered because there's so much anger, there's so much disappointment, regret.
You got to remember that slavery existed here in Halifax. For the black population, there were two populations. One, freed blacks, and the other were enslaved blacks, living in the same place. In this city, racism was very much alive.
I've been here so long, you know, it doesn't make any difference to me. But it's the young people, they got their life to live. Well, I'm over that now. I'm a woman my age. All I'm putting trust in God to spare me. I don't know what hour or what minute I may go. But still, I love my home. And this house here was one of the best houses in the settlement.
Strength to overcome. Strength to overcome. How are you today? Are you blinded by the pain? How are you today? Have you found a way to overcome the shame, to get out of the rain, to get back what was taken out of your reach? Your house, your home, all that you own was ripped away from you. So tell me, how are you today? How do you overcome? How do you right the wrong? How to move past what's done? How do you still have hope? Can you rebuild it? And even though they broke you down so you'd fail, somehow you still found the strength to prevail. Strength to overcome. Strength to overcome. Even though they broke you down so you'd fail, somehow you still found the strength to prevail.
What a beautiful song by Rochelle Cunningham.
What happened to the community of Africville was wrong. And to think this all happened in Canada in the 1960s.
Watching the communities stand up and speak out against the injustices trailblazed a path for me to be here today.
One trailblazer in particular, Eddie Carvery, is North America's longest-standing civil rights protesters. For 50 years, he has been advocating for his community. This is what he has to say.
My name is Edward Carvery. I'm a resident of Africville. We had a few stores, post office. We had a school. We had our own church. Africville started before Halifax. The decisions they made to take our society and dump it as if we were not a part of the Canadians or Canada was just awful. When I was young, they had this group of people called Black Panthers. And they were political, and they were doing things, fighting for justice for black people. I got involved with them. I was very violent, very vicious, and very angry what happened to my community. Mom was Native, and she wasn't African, so we didn't quite fit in. She said, if I wanted to do something for Africville, for black people, to right the wrong, I should go out to Africville, lay on the ground, and start this protest. When it first started, I was down the other side. They since then turned that into a park. They had to turn it into a park to get me to move over because I wouldn't go. I was sleeping on the ground. That's for about the first 10 years. And I had built a little house, and I had the property and a giant teepee. I got sick for a while. I had serious heart attacks. To come out of the hospital to find out that they had went and taken my place, tore it down back at square one, only I had no place now. I was finished. A friend of mine put in a GoFundMe, and David gave me monies, and I bought this trail I'm living in now, and been here my whole life fighting for Africville, fighting for black people, fighting for Canadians, until they realize that we're all equally the same. The only thing different is color. Even though it seems impossible, I'm still here.
We have to remember that all of our institutions, all of our systems, were all built during the period of time when racism was rampant. We've done tons of work to change the relationships, but racism still exists here in Halifax, in Canada. We are getting better only because of the work of those who have come before us.
The apology came in 2010. We're talking about reparations now. Dr. Ruth Johnson.
She's the one that designed the t-shirts. We have our reunion every year, and that's our connecting back to Africville. And people from all over the world come here to visit, to celebrate.
And every year we give out $5,000 in scholarships. It goes to the descendants and any former resident that may want to go further their education.
We are the home place for blacks in Canada, Nova Scotia is, and we are demanding change.
We're one of the museums in Nova Scotia that's not government funded. I would like to see that interpretive center so that all the artifacts from this museum church could go there and the community could use its church.
I always tell everyone I'm looking for a millionaire, just for someone to come out and help us.
In today's society, people have come to the realization that as a country or as a place, that they can't afford to have racism. So bitterness is not a pill that I choose to take. I rather take action.
My message to anybody facing racism is love.
I think we should all be able to come together as one, as a unit, stop fighting each other.
Because a person's skin is a different color, makes no difference. We're all here in this human race for the same reasons, to live and love one another.
We are a hopeful people. We didn't die. We prospered as a people.
Yeah. Yeah. V. Yeah. Look, I hope you know that we are nothing short of excellence. Those that came before us paved the way, and now we stepping in. I hope you know that. Yeah. Did you know that? Look, we the ones that we are waiting for. Can't ignore. If we ain't gonna do it, then who else is gonna get involved? Did you know that? Yeah, I hope you know that. Look, black is beautiful. beautiful, let me start by just saying that black is history, not a mystery, that's a fact. We hardly read it in books, but it's written on our skin. Whether you a darker tone or a lighter tint, whether you got curly hair or you straighten it. Oh, I see the waves, are you okay? That's legit. Now we vibing, feel the change in the climate. We African descent, but it took my fam to the island. That's mileage, yeah, somehow we made it through and smiling. At one time we were segregated, I don't know the reason for dividing. No time for that, we better together and that's a fact. We let nigga handle, we hand it back. United, we standing divided, we falling our past divided. Why go with that option? Let love rule the day, then you'll see it ain't toxic. That's the realest case, so we gon' celebrate this often. Not just for today, instead of only having 1 month all year, let's celebrate. Yeah, I hope you know that we are nothing short of excellence. Those that came before us paved the way and now we stepping in. I hope you know that. Yeah, did you know that? Look, we the ones that we are waiting for. Can't ignore if we ain't gonna do it, then who else is gonna get involved? Did you know that? Yeah, I hope you know that. We live in someone's dreams, take it by the seams. Hey, what's up everyone? This is Vashawn, and I just want to say thank you for listening to my music. You know, I've been to several indigenous communities, and something I see everywhere I go is that we are stronger together. So, thank you for celebrating Black history and Black culture with us. And you know, let's continue to celebrate one another and stay unified as we go towards a better future. Peace out, y'all.
One of the big questions we are asking today is, what can we do about racism? For me personally, understanding that I've had privileges that others haven't has been really eye-opening.
Wow, thank you, Julia. See, the Black community is not what the media portrays.
We're all human beings and we all deserve respect no matter what our skin color is. Let's work together in becoming better allies.
Another big question we're asking today is, how do we repair the damages from the past? For me, it's being vocal about the reality of racism and setting a new standard. Let's not be silent when we see injustice taking place. Let's not dismiss somebody else's experience just because we don't understand it. Let's be compassionate.
Wow, that's beautiful. I see myself as a bridge builder between different cultures and people groups. You see, we truly do find strength when we all work together and not separate.
You can repair the past by educating yourself on our shared history, like this virtual experience. The more I know, the better I become.
The last big question is, how do we move forward towards reconciliation?
Don't ignore the past. We can't change it, but we can learn from it and build a better today.
Irvin Carvery said he'd rather choose action over bitterness. Forgiveness is necessary, especially when you've been wronged.
Let's always seek to empower one another and move forward, not backwards.
Thank you for watching our virtual experience. Follow us on Instagram.
And check out our website for a list of Black-owned businesses that you can support.
Most importantly, we want your feedback. Make sure to ask your teacher for the link to submit your responses.
And remember,
we are stronger together. Until next time.
Thank you. Triple clap.
Yeah.
You right?
I was born in Canada in the 1970s.
Morning, everybody. Just up early. Dog barking all night.
I hope you know that we are nothing short of those that came before us.
I had the just to count you in, no? I just want these for bloopers. You're still here. There's a reason.
I ain't even got a haircut.
Do you want Josh to give you a haircut?
No, I don't.
When you're not strong,
I'll be your friend.
Get in there, good parts.
I'll help you carry on, boy. It won't be long. I'm gonna
keep going. Keep going.
body to lean on.
Whoa, Rashawn, that was awesome. You killed that.
There's a beautiful history in
their character. I mean, it just shouldn't happen. So, let's stay in unity. One love. V.